If you're an AI automation agency owner like me, or just getting started with building your first chatbots for your customers, you'll definitely need this tutorial. Many of you using VoiceFlow will inevitably face a common challenge: managing token usage across multiple clients. You're probably watching this video because, like me, you've encountered this exact issue when setting up your agency. Perhaps you're trying to set up a subscription-based service for your customers, a smart and strategic move. But now you're faced with a logistical question: how do I implement this? In VoiceFlow, token allowances are tied to your account as a whole, not on a per chatbot basis. This means if you have, for example, 2 customers, one might consume all your account's tokens, causing the other's chatbots to go offline, potentially harming their business and in turn yours. But I'm here to prevent that from happening. I've prepared a free template that you can download and implement in your own chatbots. So without wasting any more time, let me show you how to set this up. Now this is the template that you'll download, and I'm going to show you initially how to configure this so it will work for your particular chatbot, and then I'll give a more in-depth explanation on how this works, the logic behind it, so then you can go ahead and implement this logic on your other more complex chatbots that you've already built. So let's get straight into it. Configure billing dates. Now the only thing that you'll need to update here is subscription start. This variable basically just represents the start date that your customer begins their subscription plan. And this date needs to be in ISO format, so that's year, month, day, and then the time of day. That goes hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, and you must keep this Z on at the end. So when your customer begins their subscription plan, place that date in here, and this will be the beginning of their subscription plan, and this will be used later on in the code. Next, configure token limits. So token limit, this is the hard token limit that you're going to impose on this chatbot so you can better manage your token consumption between multiple clients. Here, I've set it to 1 million tokens. So for this chatbot, once it exceeds a token consumption more than 1 million tokens in a 30-day cycle, then the chatbot will cease to function and an error message will pop up basically saying this chatbot is experiencing high usage volumes right now, please try again later, or something like that. Chatbot ID and authorization. So these are going to be chatbot specific, and I'll show you how to update these. So for authorization, you're going to need to change the value in there and put it between single quotation marks. You need to click on integration, click on API keys, copy this API key here, go back to the designer, paste that value into authorization, and the same is for the project ID. Click on integration, and on this embedding code here to go onto the website, you navigate to this little section here, project ID, and you copy this number here between the single quotation marks. Paste that value into here, make sure it's between single quotation marks. And that is it, that's how you begin to set this up. Next, I'll show you a more in-depth overview of how this works so you just understand how it all comes together. Okay, so now let's go into more detail. So in VoiceFlow, if you want to manipulate and update a variable within a code block or an API call block, you first must define that variable before these blocks. Okay, so you'll notice that in billing dates there's a variable here called start time. Don't worry about that, we will update that value in the JavaScript block. But like I said, we just need to define something beforehand so we can go ahead and manipulate it. Now let me explain what this start time variable is and how it comes into play in this JavaScript code block. So this JavaScript code block, essentially what it does, it takes the subscription start time. This is the start date of your customer's subscription plan. It then takes the current date and it works out the difference in time. And long story short, essentially what it does, it calculates how many 30-day intervals there's been, so how many months there's been since the subscription plan start, and it determines which is the starting date of the current billing month, and it assigns that date to the variable start time. Now, this will come into play later, but following on for now, we then go to the conversation loop. Now, without adding in any of this additional logic to calculate whether the chatbot has exceeded its token usage, your chatbot on a basic level will probably look something like this, where you take an input from the user and you feed it straight to the AI response block, you get your response back, and you loop back to receiving an input from the user. But we've added additional logic now, so we check whether the token usage of the chatbot has exceeded the limits that we've defined for the current billing month. Now, in this API block request, here the authorization key is used, and also the project ID key is used here, and also the start time that we calculated here. So the start time being the date of the beginning of the current billing cycle, the current month that we're billing from. That's the start time, and basically this sends an API request to VoiceFlow's API, and from that we retrieve how many tokens have been used since the beginning of the billing month, and we assign that value to the token count. Following this along, we get to this conditional statement, and all this does is the following. It looks at the token count that we just retrieved from the API call, and then it compares it to the token limit. The token limit being the limit, the number of tokens that this chatbot is allowed to consume within the 30-day intervals. So here we set it to 1 million, and basically what this will do, it will check this month across all users, is the current token count more than the limit that we've placed on this bot? If it isn't, then we allow the loop to continue as normal. We then go to the AI response and we let it respond and do its thing, only to then have the user place a new input, and then we run this past the API request again and the logic once again to check if the token limit has been exceeded, and this will just carry on looping around. And you'll need to implement this type of logic whenever you're using VoiceFlow's AI, essentially. In the case that the token limit has exceeded the allowance for the month, we just display some kind of generic message such as this, stating that the chatbot has exceeded its token limit, or because it's more front facing, you might want to say something more along the lines that the chatbot is experiencing high volumes right now and that you're going to need to scale your systems, something like that. And that, in short, is how this loop works. Now you can go to my website, you can download this template and implement it into your chatbots as you see fit.